I don't really know where to start this or how to start this in a way that will do this game justice, but I guess let me start off by saying that I have never really dedicated all that much time to MMOs outside of the few main ones that I play, which are Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft. But Mrs Stix and I wanted to find a game that we could continue to stream every single week over on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/MMOBite for those of you that want to go ahead and accompany us on our journey, that might want to go ahead and join our guild, participate in various different events, or just hang out with us. And we decided then to jump into the Elder Scrolls Online and Guild Wars 2. Now, they are contrastingly different MMOs. Like, literally, they are as far away from being similar to one another as you can probably get. But nevertheless, we have spent probably the last 7 or 8 months streaming Guild Wars 2 every weekend. And for someone that has not really played a game as open or as freeing as Guild Wars 2 is, I can say with certainty that I've enjoyed my experience on the way to the end of the base game. Now, there are a few different things I want you guys to be aware of before going any further into this video. One, we decided that we were going to play Guild Wars 2 up until the end of the base game. We were not going to enter Heart of Thorns. We were not going to enter Path of Fire because we wanted this to be as real an experience as possible. If you were tackling this game from the perspective of a new player that has never gone into the expansion content, that has never gotten gliders or mounts. Two, we decided we were going to tackle this as hopefully a new player would. We decided we were going to explore the maps and attempt for map completion, run dungeons when we could, continue to progress through the story. We felt like that was probably the easiest, most accurate way of going about experiencing the game how it's supposed to be experienced. I know there are faster ways you can go. I know that we have plenty of you guys that are more than willing to level us as fast as humanly possible. I know that tactically, if we wanted to, we could have just went and took a crafting profession and then hit max level, or we could have used a level boost, or literally there are any number of ways we could have used to achieve max level, but we just didn't want to. And again, I can say with certainty that I am glad we decided to take the slower route, because getting to explore, I don't even know how many zones we went through. I think we went through like at least 8, maybe 9 different zones on the way to max level. So getting to see all of these different environments, getting to see the unique aesthetic look and feel of every zone, getting to participate in events that are crafted, that are tailored for each individual zone, meeting different NPCs, tackling different world bosses. Like, there was just so much that we got to experience by actually being out and engaging the game and exploring the game that you cannot do if you're attempting to rush through everything. Now, I cannot speak to how good Heart of Thorns or Path of Fire is, but I do want to note that the base game has been an incredible journey up until this point. The zones are so beautifully crafted, getting to explore everything that they built, everything that they have to offer, getting to play with such a kind, helpful community has been something that we have not really had the opportunity to experience in other MMOs outside of maybe Final Fantasy XIV. There was this one point when one of you, Sage in specific, redeemed a death, and you asked for me to go out and die to, I think it was a fish, and I went to acquiesce with that request. So I went out, I searched out a fish, and I think after about 15 minutes I finally got to die, because countless other players would come by, see me actually taking damage or dying to the fish, and just like swoop in to save me. This is something that we have never experienced before in another MMO community, and just the friendliness of pretty much everyone we've met has been unparalleled. I can guarantee you will not find a community in an MMO anywhere with a community nearly as good, as kind, as supportive as the one in Guild Wars 2. Now, like every MMO, there are pros and there are cons. No game is infallible. One of the cons that I found with Guild Wars 2 is actually that specific types of content are not really done. See, Mrs Stix and I, we love doing dungeons when we level in WoW. We like grinding through the dungeons on the way to max level. In Final Fantasy XIV, fun. We enjoy unlocking every single dungeon, every single hard mode dungeon we can, because they're all just more challenging than the typical type of content that you get. However, the dungeons in Guild Wars 2 are, interestingly enough, pretty much barren of life and participation, which left us, granted, we always had hundreds of people watching us play Guild Wars, and there were always 10, 15, 20 people in our group, so we always had players to run the content with if we wanted to. But for players that do not have a community as large as we do actively watching them, I can't foresee you ever really having the ability to tackle these outside of the story mode, which, granted, the story mode dungeons are still plenty fun to go through, especially if you want to experience the content for the first time. But if you want to tackle the content competitively, you're going to need a group, and that group is very difficult to find. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm not saying that you don't have friends that you can't run that content with. I'm saying that from a new player perspective, you're not going to have anyone to run that content with. Now, I know that there are plenty of other types of PvE content in the game, raids, fractals, like, there is plenty to do outside of doing those dungeons, but those dungeons are there, and for players that like exploring and participating in the dungeon content, it's just kind of disappointing. Now, the questing experience is something else entirely. When I started Guild Wars 2 for the very first time, I think it was probably about 4 years ago, I got in game, I realized that you didn't necessarily take quests the same way you do in MMOs, where you go, you take a couple different quests from a hub, then you navigate to the area you're supposed to, you kill the monsters or you loot the items, you then go back to the quest hub, you complete the quest, and then you move on to the subsequent quest hub. In Guild Wars 2, that is not the case. You find hero points, you find points of interest, you find vistas, you participate in the events that are going on, you complete the hearts. There are a plethora of different options that you can use while leveling out in the world, and it can be a little bit intimidating at first. Like, exploring the map for the very first time is a very daunting task. You have literally no direction. You can go anywhere you want, tackle any of the content, and that sense or lack of direction leaves some people feeling very bored, and it did for me the first time as well, because I like having direction. I like being told that after this point you get to go to this point, and after that point you can go to that point, because I do like vertical progression in my games. I know some people aren't really a fan of vertical progression, but I like having that sense of following through, making it to where you need to go, and then being rewarded, and then being able to go to the next point. But then I realized over the course of playing Guild Wars 2 that this isn't necessarily a negative, it's just different, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. After playing for enough time, both Mrs Stix and I realized that it was actually kind of laid back, kind of relaxing to just go around the world and tackle everything you saw, to search out everything that you could find on your map. You literally didn't need to worry about anything. Everything you saw, you could just do right then, right there on the spot. You didn't need to complete the map if you didn't want to. If you continue with the story and you just run through some of the quests, do some of the vistas, get some of the points of interest, do some of the hero points, you would have more than enough XP to continue moving through each zone. And the story provides a sense of direction and ultimate goal as well. Just going about it is different, and different isn't necessarily bad. Again, I ended up rather enjoying this after enough time had passed and after I'd kind of grown used to it. Now, the combat in Guild Wars 2 definitely took a little bit of getting used to. Traditionally in MMOs, you have a class. That class uses a weapon, maybe a secondary weapon, but you have your selection of skills, and that is it. In Guild Wars 2, not only can you equip a variety of different weapons, as an example, my Guardian can equip a two-handed sword, a one-handed sword and a shield, a one-handed sword and a mace, a two-handed like a great hammer, literally a staff or a scepter or a wand. Every different weapon gives you a selection of different abilities, so you can equip 2 different weapons or a shield or an offhand or an off weapon, and it just provides you with so many different abilities that your class constantly feels different, constantly feels new, constantly feels exciting. But at the same time, that did make it a little more difficult to get used to, a little more difficult to actually learn, because on the way to max level, you continue to get better gear. That is how MMOs work. Every X amount of levels, you get new weapons, you get new armor, and if you're constantly getting new weapons, that means that you're constantly changing your fighting style, your play style. And if that's the case, you're never really fully getting used to a single style of play. So on the way to level 80, I was swapping typically between a staff, a wand, a sword and shield, a great hammer, and a great sword. So then over the course of a few weeks of playing with a great sword, I would then grow accustomed to my skill selection, and then I'd go to like like a staff or a one-handed sword and shield, and my playstyle would change entirely. And I would then forget what the playstyle was that utilized the greatsword. So ultimately, when I got the greatsword back, I would have absolutely no idea what I was doing. And then the depth of the skill system, your talent system, your hero points, like, it is insane. I don't think I have ever had to dedicate as much time to a game to learning what I need to put in than I have in Guild Wars 2. There has been so much research that has gone into playing this character to be able to properly utilize my skill set so I'm not absolutely useless, and that is perfectly fine. It's just much more than I had ever anticipated putting into a game. At the end of the day, though, even with as much depth as Guild Wars 2 has, there are still cookie cutter builds that you have to follow. There are specific weapons that you can use to utilize to maximize your damage, and if you're not using those weapons, if you're not using those specific skills, then you're going to suck. Everyone that utilizes the cookie cutter build is going to be better than you. So while I do appreciate that level of depth, it's kind of unnecessary. Now, I know there's PvP in the game, but unfortunately, I did not have the opportunity to ever do the PvP, at least in the base game. But considering we are still actively streaming and actively playing the game, we do intend on participating in PvP. We just kind of wanted to clear the base game first. So I guess when I do a follow-up Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire video, I will include segments on the PvP. But at least right now, unfortunately, I know that the PvP is still semi-active. I know that there are plenty of players that still actively participate in PvP, actively enjoy PvP, and I look forward to getting in there myself eventually to test it out as well. But again, unfortunately, I just didn't have the opportunity to, partly because I didn't want to, because I still didn't really have a full grasp and understanding of my skill set, and partly because I kind of just wanted to clear what was readily available to me at the time. Now, Guild Wars 2 is an absolutely amazing game. Yes, the game does have a free-to-play base game. Yes, you do have to pay for additional expansions, Heart of Thorns, Path of Fire, and the upcoming End of Dragons expansion. Yes, the game did have a Steam release planned, and yes, it was delayed, but the Steam release is still a work in progress and will likely release after the End of Dragons expansion comes out. But trust me, this is totally worth the investment. The sheer amount of time you can spend in this game, the amount of content that this game provides, the incredible voice cast, the incredible looking world, the fantastic combat, the depth of the game itself, it is all worth every single cent that you pay. And you know what? Since you guys have made it this far, because I'm so sure that you will enjoy this game, I will pick 5 random people in the comment section below to win a copy of all of the expansions. All you have to do is leave a comment as to why you want to play the expansion content, and I will choose 5 of you guys and then follow up with you through DMs. That right there is how sure I am that you guys will enjoy this game. This game is incredible. I look forward to getting to progress further through the expansion content. Both Mrs Stix and I recently started Heart of Thorns. We know that there's a lot of content to push through. We know there's a lot of story to make it through. Speaking of the story in this game, like, I have played through my fair share of MMOs, and for those of you that have been watching both Mrs Stix and I for any length of time, you will know that for an MMO to fully grip us, we need to have a story available, a story that can entertain us, a story that can enthrall us, and Guild Wars 2 is one of probably a handful of different games that has a story that is worth dedicating time to. Final Fantasy XIV, Star Wars The Old Republic, maybe Blade and Soul, The Elder Scrolls Online, and Guild Wars 2. They are probably 5 of the only MMOs available on the entire market that are worth dedicating time to, if just for the story itself. Now, those are my thoughts, my opinions on Guild Wars 2. I know some of you guys might have differing opinions, and that is more than fine, but to me, I have not personally encountered a free-to-play MMO that is as good as Guild Wars 2 is. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today. Let me know why you enjoy Guild Wars 2 down in the comment section below, and let's talk about it. Anyway, guys, that is it for me. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you guys next time.
Someday soon, I'm gonna make it. Yeah, all hard work's gonna be worth it. Ooh,